Well, sometimes, the doctor screws up. Such was the case for the Masque of Mandragora. Well, now this is one of these, and I'll touch on this probably more significantly later, that I think, and I guess the opportunity, well, no guessing about it, the opportunity has passed, but for Big Finish stories, there's kind of a little gap here between this episode and the previous one, where you could have added in more adventures between the Doctor and Sarah in there, and then some Big Finish stories could, but unfortunately with Elizabeth Sladen no longer with us, it's not going to add that. It's just a damn shame that there couldn't have been some Big Finish stories with her and Baker, but it didn't happen. But yeah, there's opportunities to fit in, novels and whatnot, that kind of thing, for further adventures there. But anyway, we get a brief little tour of the TARDIS here, and we're introduced to a new, apparently an older control room. It's never quite established there. I mean, the Doctor goes in, and it's all kind of dusty, and it's actually kind of ahead of its time in some of the aspects, especially when the '96 movie, because they wanted to approach it to make it look like it was something out of Jules Verne or H.G. Wells or what have you, and have that look to it, thinking that's what the TARDIS interior should look like. So some of that stuff, I understand it, but at the same time, I'm more prone to keep it the way it was. Little tweaks here and there, but that the control room should have always kind of, since it stayed in that look for so long, that you could change it here and there, but the ultimate design of it would stay the same, which is why I've never really taken to New Who's versions of the TARDIS control room. The only one I really liked, you only briefly see it, was the War Doctor's TARDIS. I think that one's better. I really hate admitting it, but the one that they showed with what do you call it? The Dr. Ruth, I guess, version of her TARDIS. And which is quickly becoming a series I'm no longer considering Doctor Who canon. But anyway, this one, so it was an interesting design and everything. It's still reminiscent of basically the white one. It's just, it has this wooden look to it, and rather a smaller and simpler looking control panel that looks like just a piece of furniture. Which is interesting when you get to Shada and Professor Chronotis or what? Chronotis? Whatever. The guy who turned out to be a Time Lord. His TARDIS was a different design than the Doctor's, but it basically had a control panel like on a bookshelf or something. So something along those lines. But so this was a cool redesign they did, but the narrative in it is referred to as an earlier control room, and then there's this jacket and shirt there, and a reference to a shaving mirror. I was, this is more references. There were other doctors before the Hartnell Doctor and all that had beards and whatnot, but all men shave, you understand. Whether they grow a beard or not. In fact, if they're shaving, they don't. But the shirt looked very much like the ruffled shirt that Pertwee wore, but there's no episodes of Pertwee using this TARDIS. But I suppose if there's any gaps in between his episodes, you could say, see, it took place during that. I don't know. But anyway, it's just sort of tossed around there, and you get this new set of the TARDIS control room. And I liked it. It looks cool. But the circular panels are still very present. So, but and of course I would prefer that one to any of the new ones that happened. The only ones that came close, I thought the one that Capaldi and Matt Smith used was a step in the right direction to some extent. Because I mean, look, the police box in and of itself is rather this, it's an older looking design and stuff. It doesn't look like a spaceship at all. It's like this cabinet or what have you, and then you go in and, oh, good Lord, it's a spaceship inside there, And so I always thought it should have been rather jarring, and not looking like it's of the same style and whatnot of the exterior. But anyway, You get to see that, yeah. And then, there's trouble. The TARDIS gets captured by the Mandragora Helix. What's that? I don't know. I think it's just something they made up for the time being. And the TARDIS gets caught in it, and there's a sentient bit of energy in there. And, well, this is the problem. The Doctor investigates this for a bit and foolishly leaves the TARDIS door open. Of course, guess what? Yes, the Mandragora energy, what have you, the entity sneaks into the TARDIS. He and Sarah leave, not realizing that they had a stowaway now. And they end up in Renaissance Italy for their adventure. And, the entity escapes the TARDIS and wreaks havoc and all that. The idea of this energy, having sentience and what's that's nothing new per se. But I'm reminded of the whole idea behind the Phoenix Force and the X-Men, that it wanted to take on a corporal life of itself. And that is almost in this way in which the entity comes in contact with the Brotherhood of Demnos, which is this sort of, I was going to say satanic cult, but I guess a pagan cult, if you will, because they're sacrificing maidens and all this. They kidnap Sarah, and they're going to sacrifice her to their god. But the Mandragora takes on the identity of this supposed god for this cult, and seeks life and dominance over the earth through them, and through their high priest or leader or what have you. So you got all that going. Meanwhile, there's a castle intrigue with the Duke recently dying. His son succeeds him, but with each turns out the leader of the Mandragora, the Demnos cult, is a soothsayer who predicted the death of the Duke, and now suddenly he predicts the death of his son. And of course, he knows it's going to happen because, well, the Count is poisoning had murdered the original Duke, and now the prince, what have you, is to take his place. And so now your death is being predicted, and boy, it's always accurate. But the guy, even though he knows this is a scam and whatnot, at the same time he does believe in his pagan beliefs and whatnot. And when he comes into contact with the Mandragora Helix, well, and now he believes it's all confirmed and whatnot. And the entity promises him dominance over the earth and all that sort of stuff. So there you go. They're off to the races with that plot. And then the Doctor quickly realizes, I brought this thing to the earth, and damn, I got to deal with it. There's also the Doctor attempts to rescue Sarah when she initially gets captured by the Brotherhood, and because you mostly see action, fights and whatnot with the Third Doctor with his Venusian martial arts, but here you do get an element of that with the Doctor, and it's not the Doctor's double or android as it was in the Android Invasion, but it's the Doctor himself. He flips a guy over and all that stuff. But he turns his back on the guy, and that's the mistake, and gets knocked out. But still, you don't see much of that from Baker. But here you do. And he's actually, he's going to save his lady. And, it doesn't work out so great, but he gets her eventually. It's a good episode. It's a fun adventure, and going through caves and whatnot. And the obvious thing of the Doctor has to fix what he kind of inadvertently make happen, and it fits in with, of course, the beliefs at the time, the Renaissance time. They're beginning to understand that you have to confirm things through physical reality, which is ultimately what science is and all that. And but the odd thing about it is at the end, after everything's ready, because the prince, or is he the Duke? I forget now, but Giuliano. He's, trying to figure things out through reason and science and whatnot, and he's more on that rather than believing in superstition. But at the end, after together they've defeated the Brotherhood and all that, The Doctor and Sarah hop into the TARDIS and take off right in front of him. What's he supposed to think? I was wrong. They were gods, you know. But oh well. Maybe he'll convince himself he only dreamed it or something. I don't know. So, yeah. So ultimately, yes, the Helix or the Mandragora entity or what have you takes over the Hieronymus. Which that's what an excellent name, you know. The only one Hieronymus I know is the painter, but here we have Hieronymus the the astrologer, and slowly but surely there is no Hieronymus. It's just the Helix, and that's a kind of an interesting scene there. The effects are not, you know, all that great, but it works in enough of itself in that you understand the mask is taken off by his former partner in crime there, who's saying that's enough of this crap, and he pulls the mask off and there's nothing in there. That's actually pretty good. I mean, the monster has taken over, and that's the end of the evil count. But the Doctor pulls a fast and loose one. The pagans think it's their leader, but it's actually the Doctor in disguise at the end, and he fools them all and wipes them all out, by the way. But by then they're overcome with the Mandragora, so I guess you can say they weren't really the human dupes anymore. They're just, you know, I don't know, zombies to this power that lost its shot at taking over a corporal world like the Earth. So yeah, this is a good little romp here. I wouldn't say it's one of the all-time greats or best or anything, but pretty good, and gave Tom Baker's stunt double some work. But anyway, and of course introduced the new TARDIS control room, which we'll see quite a bit in future episodes before it's retired. And I don't know, we just never see it again for some reason. And we never see it again. We see new control rooms in the new series every other season or what have you, but this was just one of these brief little detours with that. So there you go, Masque of the Mandragora. And that's, you know, the party, not an actual mask. You wear a mask. It's a masquerade, but you know. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe? And check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you, most notably my comic book night over at indieplanet.com. And you can catch the Mr. Nailsin Show, my podcast, over at radiomisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos at BitChute.